Hey Mike, you got any reports that have come in the museum lately?
Yeah, I've got some notes here. Now this was a phone call. When I get a phone call like this, you know, I'm less inclined to believe it 100%. When I interview somebody in person, of course, I can look them in the eyes, and I can watch their body English, and you know, if they'll look me in the eyes, tell me the story, answer all my questions. If it's a local person, I usually go where the event occurred and personally investigate the situation and see if their story makes sense, and then compare that, of course, against all the lore that I've developed over the years, just reading other people's accounts. And using that, I will make a judgment on whether to believe this person or not. But once again, this was a phone call, and so I have no way really to judge except for the inflections in the voice and just the way that the person presents their story. But it was a very interesting story, and so I thought I'd share it. I'm not going to, of course, give you the name of the man or anything, and this is just a few scrawled notes. I intend to, if I ever really want to use this story, I would call this man back and get more details, which is the way I usually do the research. So I'm going to give you the gist of what I remember of the story based on this little hand-scrawled notes. And this had to do with some property that his family was living on. It was in a a mountain area. This is in British Columbia. This is up in Canada. Victoria, BC is where the man lives now. I'll give you that. And he had a situation where he was on this property that his family owned, or at least they spent time on. There had been a story about a little boy being burnt on the property that he had heard as an adult. But when he was there, and this story about because he went to see if he could find this property recently, because all of this is based on a flashback memory that he had. And, of course, as many of you might know, I had a flashback memory myself concerning a Bigfoot sighting I had as a child, but it had been repressed in my memory. And then suddenly it came flooding back all at once. And he claimed that he had a similar thing happen. But he had inspected this property, and he had been told that there was an area that had been cordoned off on the property and sort of marked off by a fence, and it was just kind of left to go by itself, and nobody went in the area because they said there was a little boy burned there. But this man had a different memory of what went on this property. And they were there and placed flowers on the site because he had this memory of actually seeing a Bigfoot that was on the property that was shot, and then the dead Bigfoot was hauled into a barn. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police came to see the body. He said that when he smelled this thing, it made him throw up, just the smell of it. He said he saw the body. He then saw, he also described having seen this thing when it was still alive and having heard it, and he made some guttural noises. He made sounds like that, kind of describing what he had heard of these things when they were in the woods talking. But he said that he actually saw the thing. It was drug out of the barn after the police left, and it was summarily placed upon a pile of firewood. This thing was set on fire, and then he said that his father and he observed this, was dousing it with diesel oil and so forth to keep the fire going, and that the body was entirely incinerated deliberately because the police had told him to do so and said that this was to be kept secret. And so this came back to him as a memory, and he said he has a friend who was when he was 13 years old, saw the Bigfoot in the woods also and can corroborate his story. But all I have is his number, and he said, he asked me if there was anybody I could get in touch with that maybe he could talk to that could help him prove the story was true. Maybe go back to the site, maybe try to dig up remains, I don't know. But he was really anxious and very, very excited about having a follow-up to this by somebody in the know. Well, it turns out that he lives in Victoria, British Columbia. John Bindernagel, the scientist who has written 2 books now on Bigfoot, lives on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. So I gave him information on how to get in touch with John Bindernagel, and if this man is genuine, then he will have contacted John by now, and perhaps there will be an investigation going on. I'll have to give John a little jingle or an email and see if indeed he heard from this man. I gave him a couple of other leads where he might go, and told him that if he didn't get any follow-up or any interest from anyone that I had put him in touch with, to get back to me, and I would work a little harder at it. So we'll wait and see how this story develops.